Welcome to Cornell Cooperative Extension's Consumer Issues Talks. I'm Kenneth McLaurin, the personal financial educator here at Cornell Cooperative Extension of Tompkins County. Today we have Mike Dana here, New York State Assistant Attorney General, to discuss scams targeting senior citizens. Mike will give a presentation about scams and frauds that generally affect our older adults. Take it away, Mike.
Thanks, Kenneth. It's always good to be out here at Cornell Cooperative Extension to discuss various consumer issues that we have. And as Kenneth mentioned, our topic today is scams targeting our more elderly population. It seems like the senior citizen population fall victim to frauds and scams more readily than maybe other groups, and there may be a whole host of reasons for that. I think that we can all agree that our senior population was probably brought up in a different era than our younger people today. They're taught to be polite. Sometimes they can be also more alone, more isolated, and they enjoy having the opportunity to speak with other people that might make them vulnerable to telephone conversations or personal solicitations from others. As we know, the younger population, they weren't brought up with all today's modern gadgets, cell phones, internet, in a lot of instances cable, and in some instances no TV. So they entertain themselves through their formative years by doing other things, engaging in face-to-face contact and having more personal interactions than maybe our younger people, so that when someone comes up to them and speaks to them, that's more in their sweet spot, and they might be more apt to fall prey to those that are talking to them. Also, as we age, it's just a fact of life that sometimes our faculties start to diminish. We may not remember as well. We may not see as well. We may not be as physically able to do the things that we otherwise were able to do. Climbing up a ladder to hang something or fix something, and so we have to hire someone to come in and do those things for us. Also, statistically, our senior citizens are the lead demographic group that is less likely to tell somebody that they have been victimized by a fraud or scam. I'm not sure what the reason is. It may be that they think that if they tell their family, this is the one-way ticket to a nursing home. This is where they lose the car keys. They lose access to their bank accounts. If they tell someone that it happened and these things get taken away from them, that may or may not be true. But at least that's in the fear in their mind. And one thing that I have to do is to encourage people, young or old, that if you are a victim of a fraud or a scam, you really need to tell someone about it. I'll use a story. I was speaking with a woman in our region, and within my 8-county region here in the Southern Tier, last week. And she called our office and she said, well, I think I have a little bit of an issue. And I said, what's that? And she said, well, I received notification that I had won a prize, that I had won, and I don't recall the amount, but it was a significant sum of money. It may have been in the millions, if not in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And like a lot of other senior citizens, she wasn't really interested in helping herself. This wasn't her golden ticket itself. It was the golden ticket where she would be able to help out her family. She had a couple of kids, and she had grandkids, and she thought, wow, by winning this prize, I'll be able to help my one child buy a house to help his family and to help his children, her grandchildren, and that this was, this really would be able to help others. So she proceeded over a 6-month period of time. In order to claim her prize, she had to make payments of various amounts. And it turns out that over the course of 6 months, she had sent $80,000 to these scam artists, believing that at the end of the road that she was going to receive whatever her huge prize was. And the scary thing is that when she called me, one of her questions to me was, again, this was $80,000, and from our conversation, it was her nest egg. It was the entire amount of her nest egg. And during the course of our conversation, she said, "Do you think that I'll be able to get enough money so that I can make my mortgage payment this month?" And I said to her that she really needed to contact her family members and her kids, and sit down with them and have this conversation about what happened and where she could go from there. And she was desperately afraid to talk to her family about it. She was so embarrassed, and that she did not want her kids to know about it, to where I had a very difficult time telling her. I had to repeatedly say to her, "You really need to sit down with your kids." And she kept saying, I can't do that. I just can't do that. And I said, there are times in our lives when we have to have various difficult discussions with people. It may be difficult discussions in another context where you have to sit down and tell your kids that, they need to clean up their financial act, or that they need to do this or they need to do that, where you have the difficult task of having to tell them they have to do something. Well, in this context, it was her sitting down with her family to have that difficult conversation, saying, "I don't have any money anymore because I sent it in to claim this prize. What can we do to help solve this problem?" I felt terrible for her. And the exploitation got to be so bad that she said the last, and this is what triggered her to call me, the last payment that she made was the day before. And she was expecting to have received by overnight delivery her prize that day, and it was into the afternoon and she hadn't received it yet. And so she was at that point where she convinced that maybe she wasn't going to get it. When I said to her, well, what was the last payment you made? Well, I made it yesterday expecting that was it and that I was going to get my prize the next day. And I said, how did you pay it? And she said, I sent it by Federal Express. And I said, no, what was the method of payment that you made? You went and got a check down at your bank, and maybe if we get a hold of Federal Express, we might be able to stop that from getting delivered, or at the very least, we can contact the bank and stop payment on that particular check. She had put $5,000 in cash in a Federal Express envelope and had it shipped out. There was no stopping it. There was nothing related to it. And so I would have to encourage people that you really need to tell somebody about it. And the most important thing in that context, before you send out a dime, you need to speak to someone else, regardless of the person who's on the telephone or on the internet or whatever, telling you don't tell anybody because this will foul up any award that you get or any loan that you get or whatever. You really need to speak to somebody about it. There are a lot of people out there that have a lot of experience with these things, law enforcement, our office, family members, friends, that can give a independent eye to what you're experiencing to try to give you some guidance related to this. There was actually a study that was recently put out through the New York State Office of Children and Family Services, OCFS. It's the New York State Cost of Financial Exploitation Study. I would encourage everybody to go look at that. It's really enlightening. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with seniors, but the study has shown that a lot of the financial exploitation falls on our senior citizens. It was a 2016 report. And just to not to blind you with all kinds of statistics and things. First of all, it's a study. It takes information that was garnered through 31 different adult protective services offices throughout the state, and also through Lifespan, which is an organization of Rochester that helps with that and does a lot of training and things for financial exploitation. I've dealt with them on several occasions where we've set up talks and have spoken at groups and things about different types of scams and frauds and financial exploitation. But the study showed that there has been an increase of 35% just from 2010 to 2014 in financial exploitation. And financial exploitation is a pretty broad definition where it's where individuals steal or misuse a vulnerable adult's financial assets or property for their own personal gain without any consent or knowledge of the victim. As you might be able to expect, a large percentage of exploitation actually occurs from family members. It's about 67% the study developed. But only 35% of the cases, the victims actually live with the perpetrators. So only about a third. But they then took the information that they had and through statistical analysis kind of spread it over the whole state of New York rather than the 31 different adult protective services agency. And they expect, and the study was interesting because it not only spread out the cost of financial exploitation, but it also made determinations as to the New York State societal costs that are incurred as a result. What are society's costs? There were service agency costs, in other words, adult protective service agency people have to come in, investigation, assistance, that sort of thing, as well as public benefit costs, housing costs that then get incurred as a result of this, medical costs that then get incurred as a result of this. And it was estimated that the annual cost, total annual cost statewide, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $124 or up to $124 million of costs. And the kind of the topper of this, the cherry on top of the sundae, is that it was estimated, because this is all based on estimations, based on the actual reports that came in and trying to stretch it all out. It is estimated that for every report that's made, there is somewhere between 10 and 44 reports that are not made. And so when you multiply this thing out, it gets to be quite extensive. So I would encourage people to review the New York State Cost of Financial Exploitation Study. It's very interesting reading. And it happens in a whole host of different ways. Of course, the big thing that we're seeing for scams and frauds is in the nature of identity theft. It's the number one financial fraud that is occurring. It is growing rapidly. Some estimates are that 7% of all people over 16 are victims of identity theft. Elderly victims have increased in 20 or more percent over even the last couple of years. And it's actually someone getting our personal identification information from another to apply for credit or steal money from their accounts. And like I said, it has exploded. Our seniors are particularly vulnerable because in as you will see if you go out and look and talk to people, seniors are starting to become much more comfortable using the internet, using social media, and they're, although more comfortable with the use of it, they may not be aware of the vulnerabilities that are associated with using those particular methods. Whenever somebody is posting anything online, there are other people out there potentially who are lurking, who are picking up on that information, who are exploiting that particular information. Those who are using social media sites, I know that seniors are becoming much more comfortable with Facebook, but I assume, although not statistically large at this point in time, but there's going to be some point in time where they're going to be becoming more comfortable with Snap and with Instagram and all these other picture posting sites, and again, not being aware of what particular vulnerabilities there are that are out there. So I would have to encourage all of you out there, young or old, be very, very careful about the things that you post on social media. I'll use some really basic examples. You're posting that a senior citizen out taking a vacation is posting his or her pictures on Facebook or Instagram, Snap, of their vacation. Greatest vacation we ever had. Here we are at the Galapagos Islands and all this and everything. If people have access to that, what is that telling someone? It's telling someone you're not home because you're on your vacation. Might be a great time to stop by your house at this particular point in time. Be very careful about posting any personal information. Ages, dates of birth, where you live. I would hope that you wouldn't be posting anything related to Social Security numbers, credit card numbers, those sorts of things, because someone can pick those things up. It doesn't have to necessarily be on a social media site, but it might cause you to have information on your computers that could potentially be hacked. And we're hearing about people who are receiving telephone calls. I'm sure a lot of you out there have received these telephone calls. This is Microsoft. There's a problem with your computer. Now sit back and try and think of this thing logically. I know a lot of things happen on the internet and all this inner workings of the computer, but how do you think that Microsoft knows that you're on your computer, for one? Some of you may not even be on your computer and somebody calls and says there's a problem with your computer, this is Microsoft. How would they know if you're not even on the computer? But there are people out there that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. How can we get this resolved? And the person says, well, go to your computer and type in these things. And oh, yeah, that's not good. That's not good. I think you got a real big problem here. Here, why don't you let me gain access to your computer? I can get in there and I can solve all of your problems for you. You are letting someone that you don't know have access to your computer where they can get in and actually take over your computer. There are instances where there is ransomware that's been added to computers, which mean that they can lock you out and you have to pay money in order to get to pay ransom in order to get access to your system. There are people that gain access to your computer and try to see what's in there. There may be all kinds of personal information. You may have made purchases online of which your information is in the computer. Your banking account information may be in your computer. They may be able to insert into your computer a key identifying system where they can pick up every keystroke that you make. So if you access your bank account from your computer, they can pick up what your password or PIN is to have access to these things. You have to be very careful about that, and that would include making sure that your virus protection is up to date. Here's one of the most important things that I can tell you. make sure that you have on the computer some way to back up your system. I know that I frequently use my computer system where I would have banking information and those sorts of things. So I would back up those things every single time that I use it. Very simple to do. You can back it up to an external device, or those of you that are starting to get really into the computers, you can be backed up onto the cloud, which is a remote storage system that's available for to be able to store all of the information that you are using. You really need to do a good have a good system in place so that you can protect the information that's on your system. So it's really important to make sure that you're able to have that information protected. So if something happens to your computer, you will be able to take it to a professional. And that's the other thing. Don't rely on someone that you got an email from or contacted you by internet to correct a problem with your computer system. Take it, there are a lot of them out there. Take it to a local computer repair place that you are aware of, that you can take it in and have them fix the system, get rid of all the bad stuff that's on there, the viruses and that sort of thing. They may be able to, especially if you've saved your information, they may be able to download it for you and put it back into the condition that it was in before you ran into the problem. It's really, in the grand scheme of things, not that expensive to do that sort of thing. It always seems like at some point in time, maybe it's every couple of years, I have some problem with my computer. Things happen. I keep my virus, malware protection up to date, but sometimes things happen. And I'll take it down to my computer place that they're familiar with me and give it to them and pay a little money and have it put back up to speed so that it is working properly. So I can't encourage people enough to do that. Identity theft is huge. We have to be very careful about protecting our personal information. Never give out personal information to people you don't know. Don't leave behind receipts. Don't write down your PINs and passwords on anything that other people can get their hands on, like keeping it in your wallet. Don't write your ATM PIN on the ATM card. Memorize it. As far as using the computers, and again, I know seniors are becoming much more comfortable using the computers and things, and so they have to have PINs and passwords to have access to certain things. I can't stress enough, the weakest link shown by studies, the weakest link for access to personal information are PINs and passwords. A weak password makes you particularly vulnerable, and you have to use things that are very robust. Don't use, this is probably the most common problem, using the same passwords over and over again. That's probably the most vulnerable. I know it's hard to remember all of these PINs and passwords, but you need to have it so that you don't use the same one. At the very least, don't use the same password on your financial accounts that you might use somewhere else. Do not use those. Here's another thing you can protect yourself. Change them frequently. You're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to remember all those? There are ways that you can change them frequently, every month or so, and change them in such a way that you can remember what it is that you're changing that will allow you to continue to remember what's going on. Don't use something that's related to you. Don't use your birth date. Don't use your telephone number. Don't use your street address. Don't use something that can come back to you. If there are things that you need to remember, maybe the best thing you can do is the longer the better. Don't use words that can be looked up in a dictionary, because there are password crackers out there that can go through a dictionary like that. So if you're using dictionary words, it makes you particularly vulnerable. I think the best thing you can do is the longer the better, interspersing capitals and small letters, symbols, and numbers. And there are ways that you can configure that in such a way that you can change that periodically, but still be able to remember it. I feel your pain, because in my office, in fact, we just received a notice on some of our, and I have access to probably at least 4 different databases and things that require passwords. One is just the one to get into my system itself. And we just received notice that on some of those, because we're making more robust protections in our firewalls and security protection in our office, they have upped the frequency within which we have to change our passwords. Used to give us a little more time. Now they've cut it in half, I think, of how frequently. The good thing for me is, for some people that's oh my gosh, I got to do this every whatever long. I change mine more frequently than that even, so that's good for me. I change mine monthly, so I know that I have a regular schedule. So when one of my rituals at the first of the month is to change my passwords, and I have to go through and change 4 of them as I do that. But I have a regular ritual. I have a way to mix things in, but to change it in a way that I can remember what it is, and it works out pretty well for me. So I think people, if people do that sort of thing, they're a lot better off toward protecting themselves. Another thing that we can do, seniors in particular, when you get your credit card and bank statements in each month, check them as soon as they come in. I have actually picked up frauds and scams that have occurred to me because there was an unauthorized charge on my account and in fact, there's been a lot of instances, more instances than that it hasn't been a fraud, but I saw something on my on my credit card statement that was not familiar to me. So I immediately got on the phone with my credit card company, very simple thing to do. And I called and I said, this charge on here, it's not familiar to me. How can we look at that? Sure, I'll be able to help you out with it. They get on it and they'll give me an idea they may not know exactly what it was that I bought, but they might know the general category of what it was. And the name that comes up on my credit card statement may not be familiar to me, but it might be a related company to a company that I actually did business with. And they're tipping me off, refreshes my recollection. I say, oh, yeah, that's right. I remember one clearly was I made a donation to a particular charity. An acquaintance, family member had passed away, and it was, make donations in the name, and I made a donation. But the name that came up on my credit card statement wasn't the one that I actually made the donation to. And that person from my credit card company said, did you make a donation on such and such a time related to, I think it was a certain type of charity or something. And I went, oh, that's right, I did do that. And sure enough, we were able to figure out what it was. But one time I came home and my wife met me at the door because she reviewed the credit card statement first, and she said, "Did we got an $1,800 charge on our credit card from Toys R Us?" It's like, whoa, that wasn't anything that would have been related to me. And it turns out it was affiliated with the 2013 Target breach. And we had used our credit card at Target when their between Thanksgiving and Christmas time, 2013, where they had a breach of their card swiping system. And we had been there. We had purchased something. We had swiped the card. This was before we had chips being used. And sure enough, our credit card was included in that. And we picked it up like that and immediately got on the on the phone with their credit card company. And they shut the card down, and we ended up getting new cards. And more recently, the credit card companies are getting better. I hope that you'll be happy if you get contacted by your credit card company and to say that there may be an unusual charge. Last month, I got a telephone call from one of our credit card companies saying, "Did you make a purchase?" And it was a small purchase. It was $25, and I can't remember where it was right off the top of my head. If I thought about it for a minute, I probably could. But it was not something that we had done. And they found it, and it was only one charge. It was on our credit card, and it was so out of the ordinary from what our normal purchases were that they called us. Not only did they call me, but my email account and I think my cell phone is registered with my credit card company. I got a text message, I got an email, and I got a telephone call saying, "Did you make this particular charge?" And I first saw it as a text message. And it said, "If this wasn't your charge, reply by saying no." So I replied no. And the next thing I know, I got a text message saying, "Someone from customer service will be contacting you, or call us on the 800 number on the back of your credit card." I figured, well, at least if I'm calling the 800 number on the back of my credit card, I know who I'm calling. It's not like somebody calling me randomly. I contacted them, said, "Yes, Mr. Danaher, yes, we noticed that there was this particular charge on your credit card." And sure enough, we got that stopped. We went through a number of charges on our credit card, and they were all mine, except for this one. And they said, "We're shutting your card down. We will send one to you." And they were very good about it. You'll find that that's also true with the credit card companies, that they want to facilitate these things. And they said to me, "Mr. Danaher, we can get you a card in like 5 days or whatever." And I said, "This is the primary card that I use, and is there a way I can get a card sooner?" And they said, "Yes, we can overnight it to you." And so within 2 days, I had a new card replacing that. So I would encourage people to keep on review your credit card bills, review your bank statements, so that you can note a problem as soon as it happens. Some of the other things that we're seeing, especially for vulnerable senior citizens, are what a lot of us have heard about, which is the grandparent scam. Some of you who haven't, here's the scenario. Telephone call rings. "Grandma, this is your favorite grandson." And Grandma says, "Bobby?" And they say, "Yeah, Bobby. I'm in a little problem here, Grandma. I was with some friends. They got in trouble. I got arrested with them. It wasn't me, but I've been arrested, and I need you to send me some money because I have to post bail so that I can get out." And they're like, "Oh my gosh." And they said, "Grandma, don't tell my parents. I'll explain to them when I get home, but they are going to be furious, and I need to talk to them in person about that. So can you really help me out and send some money?" A lot of people are falling victims to those sorts of scams. It could be money for anything. The typical one is they're in another country and they went over the Canadian border or something, and something happened and they need to have money wired out right away. Don't fall for that. It is a scam. No matter if the voice sounds like Bobby, it may in fact be that Bobby had his identity stolen, so the person calling may have some personal information about Bobby. But the important thing is, don't ever send money out for those sorts of things. I don't care what Bobby says about don't call my parents. If it were me, I would get on my phone and call my kids and say, "Do you know, And there are people, I've had people tell us this, that they've called their son or daughter and said, I got this call from Bobby. Their child responds, Bobby, he's sitting right here watching TV. So that is a scam or a fraud. Do not send any money. But there are a lot of seniors that are falling victim to it. Another one that we're hearing a lot about, and you will hear a lot about it around this time of year, which is the IRS scams. People are receiving telephone calls saying that they're from the IRS, that you're going to be arrested because you didn't either submit taxes or didn't pay taxes, and that to avoid arrest, all you need to do is to send money. And there are certain obvious triggers to this. A lot of what they're saying is that you need to wire out money. The IRS is not taking money by wire. Second of all, and more glaring, is they'll have you go get cash cards, money cards, and have you give them the number that's on the money card. It might be a long number. And what that is anybody with that number can then go out and cash that card. So in essence, they're asking you to send cash through the mail. The IRS doesn't do that sort of thing. For those of you that have paid the IRS know that when you pay the IRS, you have to put on the memo column of your check what your Social Security number is, what you're paying it for, whether it's your 1040 estimated taxes you have to write on that. They aren't taking cash over the internet or over the telephone to pay particular debts. And the other thing is how do you know if you pay something by cash that it's actually going to be applied toward the bill that supposedly is owed? So those are all scams and frauds. One other thing that is really happening nowadays, again, because seniors are becoming much more comfortable with the use of internet and they're receiving these calls, most of the time it starts by the internet, is what we refer to as romance scams. People are meeting others on the internet and they're meeting through Facebook and other things and then all of a sudden they start talking to each other on telephone. You have never met this person in person, but all of a sudden you have this connection and that you fall in love and that you are going to be happily ever after married, and then that leads to sending money. There are instances where they're in another country and they have, I can't leave. I have an elderly parent who I'm taking care of, and I really can't leave because I don't have the money to take care of him or her. And of course you love them so much that you're willing to send them money so that they can take care of their parent, or they can't wait to come and visit you, but they're having a visa issue and they need some money to get that straightened out. So you say, well, you're anxious to meet them, to live happily ever after, so you send them the money, and then something else happens and they can't get to you, and you send them more money, and before you know, you are wiped out. And you sit out there and we will say, oh, that's ridiculous. That would never happen to me. I get calls in our office all the time. And actually, it's from someone who doesn't want to admit to the fact that they have been sending some money to someone that they don't know. And it can be as innocent as they think they know the person because they've talked all the time. They've been on the phone, they've FaceTimed, they have communicated frequently. They may have talked to the person's children, supposedly. They really know them. And so they'll call us and they'll say, my boyfriend or girlfriend is having a fiance. fiance, is having a difficult time getting over here, and they may call our office not because they have sent all kinds of money to the people, but they want the assistance of the Attorney General because their fiance is having a difficult time and somebody's yanking them around and can't get here, and this is something that the government should step in and rectify, to the point where we say to them, there's no boyfriend or girlfriend. There's no fiance. You're being scammed. You should not be sending money, and they do not believe us. Or they've sent money, and for some reason the boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, somehow the money never got to them. It disappeared, and you contact us because you want to get this problem solved, and it should be us intervening on behalf of government, and that the banks are not taking care of this issue and all that stuff. And then when we say they probably got the money and they probably want to get more money from you and this is a scam, sometimes it's very difficult to convince the victims that they've actually been victimized in these sorts of things. But understand, the scam has its own name now, romance scams. So be very wary of quote-unquote people that you meet online and develop this particular relationship, because I know they would never do this to you. But if it involves you sending money, even to where they've convinced you so much that they are your soulmate, that you voluntarily send them money. They never asked me for the money. I sent it to them voluntarily. That's part of the scam. They try to convince you to do it of your own free will. So be careful about those sorts of things. A few other scams that you need to be aware of. I've actually heard about them happening already, and now as we tape this show, for those of you that aren't present, there is snow on the ground, but when you watch this, snow will hopefully start to be disappearing, and maybe the sprouts of the tulips will start coming out. Home improvement scams. Regardless of the fact that, as we tape this, that it's cold and there's snow on the ground outside, we actually have heard, I've heard within the last month of driveway pavers going through neighborhoods saying, we can fix your driveway up. That's an outright scam right off the bat. If it's January or February and they're telling you they can put blacktop down, blacktop shops aren't even open yet. They can only put it down when temperatures are warm enough to put it down. They can't put it down now. So anybody coming door to door claiming that they can do that sort of stuff to your driveway, it's a scam. Do not fall victim to somebody coming door to door to do any type of home improvement for you. Be a good consumer. Don't do home improvement work without references or referrals from someone that you know. Don't be forced into signing a contract without you knowing about it. Get everything in writing. Make sure you get it in writing in advance. I'll tell you that the one scam that I had heard about, it was actually called to me by the police because victims contacted the police, was this driveway paving person was going by saying, I'll give you a great deal. I'll only charge you $1 a pound. No driveway paver ever charges by the pound. It's never, ever done that way. And first of all, it's usually done by a square footage calculation that they make, but they never charge. You should never accept a charge per anything, per pound, per square foot, or anything. You need to know the total price that you're being charged before the job starts, before you even agree to it. And if the person will not tell you ahead of time and stick to that price, do not hire them. Do not. It's a scam. Another fraud or scam that's out there that's happening all the time are sweepstakes scams. People are receiving notice that they have won sweepstakes and that will send you $200. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of money. It could be $50,000. It could be 250 million. It could be anything in any amounts of money. They are scams and frauds. There are different ways to tell about those sorts of things. I actually brought one with me. Here is one that's for those of you who can't see out there, it says Trans Financial Services along the top, and it's out of Woodbury, Connecticut, and it's the final payout notification. That's the first thing, because one of the key things about frauds and scams is they want to get you fast before you have time to think about it, and this is your final payment notice, so my gosh, you better hurry up and claim it. And this says that this person had won $190,000, and they're going to be sending you a check, they'll send you a check, but in order to claim your prize, you have to pay what they call as statutory tax clearance fee of $3,500. Now, the rule is if you never pay money to receive money. Never pay money to receive money. Well, the scam artists are aware of these sorts of things. So what they're doing now is they're attaching checks. Attaching a check. And invariably, every check that gets sent for one of these is slightly greater than what you have to pay in fees. In this particular case, the check was $3,950. But the claim for the prize award is $3,500. They tells you to go down, deposit this check in your account, withdraw $3,500 to pay the fee, be in contact with the claim representative, which is there's a telephone number here for a claim representative. The interesting thing is that the Trans Financial Services address is in Connecticut, but they have you call a number in, I think, Ireland, in order to, it's an international call, whatever it is, to claim. And they're going to tell you to go out, take your cash, and wire the $3,500 out. What you did was, wiring money is actually the transport of cash. You sent out cash. So you deposited a check, but you sent out cash. And the result is that this check ultimately will bounce. It could take up to a couple of weeks for it to bounce. And when it bounces, you will have already sent out the $3,500, but you sent out $3,500 in cash. And the bank will come back to you and say, we want our $3,500 back. And they are right. They can do that. So, all of these things are scams. There's different ways to tip them off. First of all, one thing is the letter came from the Trans Financial Services in Woodbury, Connecticut. If you look at the envelope it came in, the envelope has a stamp from South Africa. Also, the prize came from, the letter came from Trans Financial Services. The check was a company based in Massachusetts. And what has ended up happening is sometimes company checks, this could have been a legitimate account, a legitimate check at one point in time. They got circulated and some scam artists got their hands on it and they scanned it and then got check paper and was able to reprint it out as a valid check and then just start circulating these things. These checks go around and around and around and keep coming back. I was just talking to a bank security officer the other day, and they say this particular check could have circulated to thousands, tens of thousands of people, and then they sit it for a while when it comes out that it's fake, and then they may recirculate it again. In fact, he said that on one particular check that came out, that he said just out of kicks, he works for a bank, so out of kicks, he called the company whose name the check was, and he said, I'm so-and-so from XYZ Bank, and she said, don't go any farther, it's a fake. Before he even mentioned that he was calling her about a check or anything else, they had all kinds of checks that were being circulated for these sorts of things. So all of these things are frauds and scams, and you should just throw them away. They will not be They will not. They will just be a scam. You'll never be able to cash those sorts of things. And fall back to the same principle I talked about before, which was never send money to receive money. No legitimate lottery, no legitimate sweepstakes is going to have you pay money to receive the fraud, the proceeds of your winnings. Those are just some of the scams and frauds that are out there going on. There are a whole host of those. If you believe that you've been victimized by a fraud or scam, or that you have some other type of problem with a business, where you think that there may have been some type of deception or anything, feel free to contact our office. We can give you some guidance on how you should handle that particular matter. We would be glad to help you. The 800 number for our office is 1-800-771-7755, and we'd be glad to help you out. Also, I know that Cornell, and Kenneth will tell you in a second, Cornell Cooperative Extension have many consumer issue programs that they put on, financial planning, those sorts of things that they would be glad to help you out with. And so I would encourage you to contact them as well if you'd like to get some assistance related to that. Other than that, I'll pass it back to Kenneth.
Thank you very much, Mike. As Mike said, you're welcome to contact us here at Cornell Cooperative Extension of Tompkins County. We have a myriad of different programs and workshops, and we also offer one-on-one personal financial education. So I encourage you to check our website for more information on that. And remember, we are here the second Thursday of every month for the Consumer Issues Talks with Mike Danaher, the New York State Assistant Attorney General. Thank you all. Have a great day.